Disclaimer: this content is intended for a mature audience only. Viewer discretion is advised. The room was quiet except for the faint hum of the night outside, the kind of silence that makes every heartbeat sound louder, every breath feel heavier. I remember clutching the blanket up to my chin, as though thin fabric could shield me from the intensity in his eyes. My husband stood at the edge of the bed, calm yet unyielding, his presence filling the space like a storm pressing against the walls. It wasn't anger that moved him, nor impatience. It was something deeper, something that left me unable to look away. I tried to hide, burying myself beneath the soft folds, but he caught me with the ease of someone who already knew my every secret. The blanket slipped away in a single tug, leaving me exposed not in body, but in truth. He leaned close, his hands finding mine, pressing my wrists gently above my head. It wasn't force, it was a quiet insistence, a reminder that love sometimes asks us to surrender the masks we wear even in the safety of marriage. My breath trembled as his lips brushed against my skin, not rushing, but lingering, as if each touch carried a word unspoken. I could feel the battle inside me, fear of vulnerability colliding with the comfort of his devotion. The years we had shared were all here in this moment, the laughter, the arguments, the fragile silences. And yet, under the weight of his steady gaze, I realized how much I still craved the rawness of being seen, truly seen, without hiding. His kisses trailed lower, not hurried but deliberate, each one unraveling the shield I had built around my heart. I trembled, not from fear, but from the overwhelming truth that love is both gentle and consuming, demanding and tender all at once. I wanted to speak, to tell him everything that stirred inside me. But the words caught in my throat, tangled in the electricity of the moment. Instead, I lay still, suspended between resistance and surrender, waiting to see how far he would go, how deeply he would reach into the parts of me I still kept hidden. And just when I thought I knew what would come next, he paused. His lips hovered above my skin, his eyes searching mine with a question I wasn't ready to answer. The silence between us grew heavier. What would I say? What would I allow? The night waited for my choice. The silence stretched, as though time itself had grown cautious, unwilling to disturb the fragile weight of what lingered between us. His eyes searched mine, steady, patient, yet shadowed by something unspoken. I knew that look, I had seen it before, in moments when words failed him but his heart pressed forward, aching to be understood. My breath came shallow, though I tried to steady it. He had always been the stronger one, not in body alone, but in will. I remembered the first time I noticed it, years ago, when we were still learning who we were to each other. He would stand so firmly in his beliefs, while I hovered at the edges, afraid of the vulnerability honesty required. And here we were again, circling that same quiet battlefield, only now the stakes felt heavier. His grip on my wrists was not force, but an anchor, a reminder of how much I mattered to him. He had this way of holding me as though he feared I might slip away if he let go too soon. It wasn't control, it was devotion laced with insecurity, a silent plea that I never fully grasped until this moment. And me? I trembled, not because I didn't want his closeness, but because I wanted it too much. I had spent so many nights pretending to be strong, pretending that I didn't long to be unraveled, that I had forgotten how terrifying it is to be seen without armor. My heart thudded against my ribs, aching with both fear and anticipation. His lips brushed against my cheek, softer now, hesitant, as if he, too, was afraid of crossing some unseen line. That hesitation revealed the truth. He wasn't only asking for my surrender, he was offering his own. Behind his steady gaze, there was a man who needed reassurance just as much as I did, a man who had carried burdens in silence while loving me fiercely in the daylight. I felt the warmth of him close, the weight of years we had shared pressing down on us, shaping the moment into something far more than physical. It was about trust. About daring to open doors we had kept locked for far too long. And then, he whispered my name, so quietly that I almost thought I had imagined it. His voice trembled. The sound lingered in the air, heavy, unanswered, demanding a response I wasn't sure I was ready to give. The night waited again, holding its breath. What would happen if I let myself answer? His whisper lingered in the air, soft as a thread of smoke, yet heavy enough to sink straight into my chest. My name, spoken not as a question, but as a plea. For a moment, the world outside our room ceased to exist. There was only him, and me, and the silence charged with everything we hadn't said. I wanted to answer. I wanted to tell him that I wasn't hiding from him, not really. I was hiding from the pieces of myself I feared he might not recognize anymore. Marriage, after all, is not just a weaving together of two souls, it is also a test of how much truth they can hold without breaking. And some truths, I had learned, were heavier than others. He leaned closer, his forehead brushing mine, and for an instant I caught the faintest tremor in his breath. He wasn't as unshakable as he seemed. Beneath his steady grip lived a man who carried doubts, who feared that my silences meant distance, that my hesitations meant regret. He had given me so much of his strength over the years, yet here he was, showing me the cracks in his own armor. Memories pulled at me. The nights when I would sit awake long after he had fallen asleep, staring into the dark, wondering if he noticed how I kept certain fears buried. The afternoons we laughed until our sides ached, only for me to retreat later, unsure how long joy could last. And that one evening, months ago, when he reached for me and I turned away, not because I didn't want him, but because I didn't know how to let him see the storms I carried inside. Now, with my wrists held gently above me and his lips just a breath away, I felt the echoes of those choices pressing down on us. The conflict wasn't between us, it was within me. Could I let myself be bare, not in body but in spirit, without fearing what he might see? Could I trust that his love would stretch to hold even the parts of me that weren't polished, weren't easy? His eyes asked me again, silently, urgently. And though my lips parted, the words still would not come. Instead, I gave him only a look, a trembling, unguarded glance that held both surrender and fear. The night deepened. The question remained. And somewhere in the quiet, I realized this moment would decide not just our closeness tonight, but the shape of us tomorrow. The air between us grew heavier, as though the walls themselves were holding their breath. His hand tightened ever so slightly around my wrists, not to restrain but to ground me, to remind me that I was still here, still tethered to him. My pulse quickened beneath his touch, each heartbeat loud enough that I wondered if he could hear it too. His eyes burned into mine, steady, searching, almost desperate. There was no anger there, no demand, only the raw ache of someone who wanted to be let in, fully, without conditions. And that was what terrified me most. Because to open the door completely meant letting him see the fragile, unpolished truths I had tucked away for years. "Why do you hide from me?" His voice broke the silence, quiet but jagged, as though he feared the answer even as he asked it. The question pierced deeper than any touch could. My throat tightened. I wanted to tell him everything, that sometimes love felt too big, too consuming, that I feared being swallowed by it, that I feared disappointing him if he knew the depth of my doubts. But my words caught like thorns in my chest, leaving me trembling in silence. He lowered his face closer, his breath warm against my skin, and pressed his lips softly against my temple. The gentleness undid me more than any urgency could have. He wasn't trying to conquer me, he was trying to reach me, to coax me from the shelter I had built for myself. I closed my eyes, letting the sensation linger, the brush of his lips carrying both comfort and a plea. The years of our marriage unfolded in my mind like fragile film reels. The day he first held my hand in the rain, the night we argued until dawn but fell asleep with our fingers still entwined, the countless mornings where his quiet presence steadied me before I faced the world. And yet, here we were, still caught in the fragile space between closeness and distance, between surrender and silence. His kisses trailed slowly downward, deliberate, unhurried, as if to remind me that love doesn't demand, it waits. Each one unraveled me a little more, each one asked the same unspoken question, "Will you let me in?" My breath shook, caught between desire and fear, my heart pounding louder with every passing second. I opened my eyes again, meeting his gaze. There was no escape now. The night held us both, suspended on the edge of something that could either shatter us, or finally set us free. His gaze lingered on mine, heavy with questions I had refused to answer for too long. For a heartbeat, I thought I might finally surrender, might let the words tumble out of me like a flood breaking through a dam. But before I could speak, he whispered something that changed the air between us entirely. "I don't want you to love me out of habit," he said, voice breaking at the edges. "I need to know it's still me you want, not just the comfort of what we've built." The words hit me like a storm. Habit. Comfort. Was that how he saw us? The quiet routines, the daily rituals that had once felt like safety, now painted as chains? His vulnerability cut deeper than any kiss. He wasn't simply seeking closeness, he was asking me to choose him again, here and now, with all the passion and risk of the first time. A lump formed in my throat. I thought of the years we had spent together, how his hand fit around mine as if it had always been there, how his laughter filled the hollow corners of my soul. But I also thought of the doubts I carried, the moments when fear whispered that passion fades, that love settles into something quieter, safer. Had I leaned too much into that safety? Had I hidden behind it, afraid to admit that I still burned for him in ways I didn't know how to express? He lowered his head, pressing his forehead against mine again. His grip softened, as if he was giving me the choice to pull away. That freedom made the decision harder. Because now it wasn't just about yielding, it was about daring to answer his question with the truth of my heart. And then another twist struck me, as sharp as lightning. What if my silence all these months had already convinced him I didn't feel the same? What if he was bracing himself, right now, for rejection? The thought sent a tremor through me. I looked into his eyes, saw the fear beneath the strength, the love beneath the plea. My lips parted, but the words still wouldn't come. Instead, I reached for the only thing I could give, my gaze, raw and unguarded, filled with everything I couldn't yet speak aloud. The tension snapped tighter. We were no longer just husband and wife, we were two souls standing at the edge of rediscovery, each waiting for the other to step first. The silence broke first, not with words, but with a shuddering breath I didn't realize I had been holding. My chest ached with the weight of what had gone unsaid, and in his eyes I saw the same ache mirrored back at me. For too long, we had both been waiting for the other to cross that invisible line, to say aloud the truths our hearts had whispered in secret. Finally, the dam inside me gave way. "It's always been you," I said, my voice trembling but fierce. "Not habit. Not comfort. You. Even when I'm afraid, even when I hide, it's you I want." His grip on my wrists loosened instantly, but I didn't pull away. Instead, I held still beneath him, watching as relief flooded across his face like light breaking through storm clouds. The intensity in his eyes didn't fade, it deepened, softened into something almost unbearable in its tenderness. He lowered himself until our foreheads pressed together, and I felt the faint tremor in his breath. "I thought I was losing you," he whispered, the words fractured, as though confessing a wound he had carried in silence. My heart twisted. That was the truth I hadn't seen clearly. He wasn't only fighting for closeness tonight, he was fighting against the fear of becoming invisible to me. Of being loved out of duty rather than desire. I shook my head. Mature storyteller Pro said, the night settled into a gentler rhythm after the storm of silence and confessions. His arms wrapped around me, no longer in restraint but in quiet assurance, and I rested there, listening to the steadiness of his heartbeat against my ear. The urgency that had filled the air just moments ago gave way to something softer, deeper, the kind of closeness that doesn't demand, but simply exists. For the first time in a long while, I felt my body unclench, as though the hidden corners of myself had finally been given permission to breathe. He had seen my fear, my hesitation, my unspoken doubts, and he had not turned away. Instead, he had drawn me closer, not with force, but with patience and truth. We spoke then, in fragments. Memories spilled out, both the ones that had kept us laughing and the ones that had weighed on us like stones. He admitted how often he had feared my distance meant indifference. I confessed how often my silence was only the echo of my own insecurities. Piece by piece, the quiet misunderstandings that had grown between us unraveled, leaving space for something new to take root. The room was still, but it felt transformed. The same four walls, the same lamp casting its golden glow, yet everything seemed brighter, as though honesty itself had lit a flame in the dark. I realized that love doesn't fade because of routine, it fades when we stop daring to reveal ourselves. And tonight, by bearing the fragile truths we had long hidden, we had chosen each other again. When at last his fingers threaded through mine and our hands rested together against my heart, I understood the gift we had been given. Not just passion, not just safety, but the courage to be seen. I looked at him, and he looked at me, and for once there were no walls, no questions left between us. Only truth, only love, only the quiet promise that whatever storms might come, we would weather them together. And in the hush of that night, one thought rose clear and unwavering: to be chosen, again and again, is the most powerful kind of love. Add, tears blurring my vision. You'll never lose me. But I was so afraid that if I let you see all of me, my doubts, my storms, you'd turn away. His lips brushed against mine, not demanding, but reverent. Then let me carry those storms with you. Don't lock me out. And in that moment, I realized the climax of our struggle wasn't about passion alone, it was about trust, about daring to be unguarded even when it felt dangerous. The kiss that followed wasn't hurried or wild, it was steady, layered with years of love, fear, forgiveness, and rediscovery. The final twist came quietly, almost imperceptibly, but it changed everything. I felt myself surrender, not to his touch alone, but to the truth that love was not about perfection. It was about being seen in the rawness of who we are, and being chosen anyway. The trembling faded, replaced by a calm so profound it startled me. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't hiding. And in his arms, I knew, I never had to again.